The Council of Stars. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had ruled without question. Their fleets numbered in the hundreds of thousands, their weapons could crack planets, and their laws were absolute. From the crystalline towers of the Valdari homeworld to the ocean cities of the Kryn, every species bowed to their authority. The council consisted of 7 elder races, each one having conquered their way to the top before agreeing to share power rather than destroy each other. They were ancient, they were powerful, and they were certain of their dominance. Then humanity arrived. The first human ship that entered Council space was a simple exploration vessel called the Pathfinder. It carried no weapons worth mentioning, just curiosity and hope. Captain Maria Chen stood on the bridge as her crew detected the massive station orbiting a gas giant. It was beautiful, a spiraling construct of metal and light that defied imagination. She ordered a hail, standard first contact protocol, and waited. The response came within minutes. A holographic face appeared, tall and angular with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed faintly blue. This was Executor Thane of the Valdari, one of the 7 ruling species. Unknown vessel, you have entered sovereign space of the Galactic Council. State your origin and intent. His voice carried the weight of authority, the kind that expected immediate obedience. Maria stepped forward, her uniform crisp, her expression calm. I am Captain Maria Chen of the United Earth Exploration Corps. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship with the civilizations of the galaxy. Thane studied her for a long moment. Then something that might have been amusement flickered across his features. Earth, yes, we have records of your system. A single planet, recently unified, technologically primitive. You have no place in Council space. Return to your world and do not venture here again. The transmission ended abruptly. Maria stood in silence, her crew exchanging uncertain glances. They had traveled years to reach this point, crossed the void between stars with dreams of meeting other civilizations, and they had been dismissed like children. The Pathfinder returned home with its data, its records, and its message. Humanity was not welcome among the stars. The Council had spoken, and their word was law. But humanity had never been good at following rules they didn't agree with. In the decades that followed, Earth changed. The nations that had only recently stopped fighting each other found new purpose in the face of galactic rejection. Resources were pooled, scientists collaborated across borders, and a singular question drove them forward. If the galaxy would not accept them as equals, then how could they prove their worth? The Council, meanwhile, forgot about the little blue planet and its curious inhabitants. They had more important matters to attend to. Border disputes between the Kryn and the insectoid Zephyra, trade negotiations with the machine collective known as the Synthesis, the expansion of their territories into unclaimed regions of space. Humanity was a footnote in their vast records, barely worth remembering. But in the dark spaces between stars, in hidden shipyards orbiting dead moons and within hollowed asteroids, humanity was building something the galaxy had never seen before. They studied every scrap of data the Pathfinder had collected. They reverse-engineered technologies from abandoned alien probes. They pushed their science to the breaking point and beyond. The project had no official name at first, just a designation in classified files. But the engineers and soldiers who worked on it gave it a name that reflected both their pride and their defiance. They called it the Prometheus Initiative. 50 years after humanity's rejection, the Council detected unusual energy signatures near the border of their space. Ships were dispatched to investigate. A small patrol of 3 cruisers, more than enough to deal with pirates or rogue explorers. What they found was a human station, small but sophisticated, clearly conducting research. Commander Vrix of the Kryn led the patrol. His species was known for their efficiency and their strict adherence to Council law. Human station, you are in violation of Council decree. Cease all operations and prepare to be boarded. The response came from a woman's voice, calm and measured. This is Director Sarah Okonkwo of the Prometheus Research Station. We are conducting peaceful scientific research in unclaimed space. We have violated no laws. Vrix felt his gills flutter in annoyance. These humans were persistent, he would grant them that. All space within 500 light-years of Council borders is under our jurisdiction. You have been warned. Comply or be destroyed. There was a pause, and then Director Okonkwo spoke again, and this time there was something different in her tone, something that made Vrix's instincts suddenly scream warning. Commander, we have complied with your laws for 50 years. We have built beyond your borders. In the darkness you claim but do not patrol. We have waited, we have prepared, and we have grown. You told us we had no place among the stars. We are here to respectfully disagree. The station's lights suddenly intensified and every sensor on Vrix's ship began screaming alerts. Energy readings were spiking to impossible levels, and something was happening in the space behind the station. Reality itself seemed to be twisting. Before Vrix could give the order to fire, space tore open like a wound, and something emerged from the dark. It was a ship, but unlike anything in the Council's vast databases. It was massive, easily dwarfing the three cruisers, its hull a matte black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange geometries covered its surface, angles that hurt to look at directly, and along its spine ran a line of brilliant blue energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship moved with impossible grace for something so large, positioning itself between the station and the Council vessels. Commander Vrix stared at his screens, his trained mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The power readings were beyond anything he had encountered. This single vessel was generating more energy than his entire patrol group combined. "What?" he began, but the words died in his throat as a new voice came through his communications array. "Commander Vrix, this is Captain James Rodriguez of the UESS Horizon. You are ordered to withdraw from this sector immediately. Consider this your only warning." The voice was human, but it carried absolute certainty, the tone of someone who knew they held all the advantages. Vrix's pride warred with his survival instincts. The Council did not retreat. The Council did not bow to upstart species who had barely left their home world. But his sensors were still screaming. His tactical officer was pale with fear, and every instinct honed over decades of military service told him that if he gave the order to attack, his ships would not survive the encounter. He made the only choice he could. All ships withdraw to Council space, maximum velocity. As his patrol fled, Vrix activated his emergency beacon, transmitting everything his sensors had recorded directly to the Council's central command. The message was simple but carried implications that would shake the foundations of galactic power. Humanity had returned to the stars, and they had brought with them something that should not exist. A weapon the Council could not match, a ship that rewrote the rules of warfare, and a message that could not be ignored. The age of unchallenged Council rule was over. The Council's response. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in recorded history. All 7 elder races gathered in the Grand Chamber, a space so vast it could hold entire cities. And for the first time in centuries, they convened in person rather than by hologram. Executor Thane of the Valdari stood at his podium, his obsidian features grave as he reviewed the data transmitted by Commander Vrix. Around him, the other Council members displayed various degrees of concern and outrage. "This cannot be accurate," declared High Magistrate Krell of the Synthesis, his mechanical voice resonating through the chamber. "The energy signatures suggest a power generation system that violates known physics. Either your sensors malfunctioned, Thane, or this is an elaborate deception." Thane's eyes glowed brighter, a sign of agitation among his people. "I have reviewed the data personally. I have consulted with our finest scientists. The readings are legitimate. Somehow, in the span of 50 years, humanity has developed technology that surpasses our own." Fleet Admiral Zaroth of the Zafara clicked his mandibles together, a gesture of dismissal. "Impossible. They were primitives when we encountered them. They had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. No species makes such leaps in technology without outside help." That sparked a heated debate. Accusations flew across the chamber. Had one of the Council races secretly aided the humans? Was this a plot by an outside power to destabilize their authority? The argument continued until Chancellor Miriam of the Kryn raised her voice, her words cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Enough. Fighting among ourselves serves no purpose. Whether we understand how they achieved this or not is irrelevant. The fact remains that humanity has deployed a vessel of unknown capability within range of our borders. The question before us is simple. What do we do about it?" The chamber fell silent. It was Fleet Admiral Zaroth who spoke first, his tone hard and uncompromising. "We do what we have always done. We enforce Council law. We assemble a battle fleet and destroy this ship before humanity can build more. We remind them why the Council has ruled for 3 millennia. Several members voiced agreement, but others were more cautious. Executor Thane raised his hand, requesting recognition. I do not counsel cowardice, but neither do I counsel recklessness. We do not know what weapons this vessel carries. We do not know if it is alone or if humanity has built others. I propose we first attempt communication. Discover their intentions before we commit to war. High Magistrate Krell agreed. The Valdari speaks wisdom. We should gather intelligence. Send diplomats. If they refuse to negotiate, then we show them the full might of the Council fleet. After hours of debate, a compromise was reached. The Council would dispatch a diplomatic envoy accompanied by a substantial military escort. They would demand answers from humanity, insist on inspections of their vessel, and make clear the consequences of defying Council authority. If humanity complied, there might be a path to peaceful resolution. If not, the fleet would be authorized to use whatever force necessary. The chosen envoy was Ambassador Lyrith of the Valdari, known for her skill in negotiation and her ability to read the intentions of other species. She was given a battle group of 20 warships, including 2 of the Council's most powerful dreadnoughts. It was meant to be a show of force, a reminder that while the Council preferred peace, they had the means to enforce their will. The fleet made the journey in 3 days, emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the sector, where the human station and the mysterious warship waited. What they found surprised them. The single black warship had been joined by 5 more vessels, each one similar in design but with subtle variations. They formed a defensive perimeter around the human station, their weapons systems clearly active but not yet targeting the Council fleet. Ambassador Lyrith opened a channel, her voice carrying the formal tones of official Council business. Human vessels, this is Ambassador Lyrith of the Galactic Council. We come to discuss your presence in this region and to establish terms for peaceful coexistence. Will you speak with us? The response came from the same Captain Rodriguez whose voice had driven Commander Vrix away. Ambassador, we are willing to talk. However, we will not permit your warships to approach within weapons range of our station. You may dock with us using a single diplomatic shuttle. Your fleet will maintain its current position. Lyrith felt a flash of irritation. These humans were dictating terms to the Council? But she had her orders, and provoking a conflict was not among them. She agreed to the terms and made the journey to the human station alone, her shuttle escorted by 2 smaller human craft. The station's interior was surprisingly advanced, clean lines and efficient design that spoke of a culture focused on function over aesthetics. She was greeted by Director Okonkwo, the same woman who had first defied Commander Vrix. The director was middle-aged by human standards, with dark skin and eyes that held both intelligence and weariness. Ambassador, welcome. I appreciate your willingness to meet under these circumstances. They were escorted to a conference room, and as they walked, Lyrith observed everything. The humans moved with purpose. Their technology was seamlessly integrated into their environment, and there was no sign of the primitiveness the Council had expected. Once they were seated, Lyrith began. Director, the Council has reviewed the encounter between your vessel and our patrol. We are deeply concerned about the technology you have displayed. No species develops such capabilities without either outside assistance or access to forbidden knowledge. We require full disclosure of how you achieved this, and we require access to inspect your vessels. Director Okonkwo smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Ambassador, with respect, humanity owes the Council nothing. We were dismissed from your presence 50 years ago, told we had no place among the stars. We did not steal your technology. We did not violate your laws. We simply went further into the dark and built something you did not expect. Lyrith leaned forward, her voice hardening. You do not seem to understand your position. The Council has maintained peace and order in this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have done so through strength, through unity, and through the enforcement of laws that protect all species. Your actions threaten that order. You will comply with our requirements, or you will face the consequences. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Director Okonkwo stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the black warships floating in formation. Ambassador, I am going to tell you something that your Council needs to hear. Humanity spent 50 years being told we were not good enough, that we were too young, too primitive, too insignificant, and instead of accepting that judgment, we decided to prove you wrong. She turned back to face Lyrith, and there was steel in her voice. We studied every principle of physics we could find. We pushed our scientists to the breaking point and beyond. We united our entire species around a single goal, and we built these ships not to conquer, but to ensure that never again would humanity be dismissed without a voice. You want to inspect our vessels? You want us to share our secrets? Then offer us what you denied us before. A seat at the table. Recognition as equals. Respect. Lyrith felt something she had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. The humans were not backing down. They were not intimidated by the Council fleet. They genuinely believed they could stand against the combined might of the galaxy's ruling powers. And if the Council refuses? She asked quietly. Director Okonkwo's expression was sad but resolute. Then the Council will learn what humanity discovered long ago. That peace built on domination is not true peace. It is simply the quiet before the storm. We do not want war, Ambassador, but we will not be made to kneel. Not again, not ever. The negotiations continued for hours, but the positions did not change. Humanity demanded recognition and equality. The Council demanded compliance and submission. When Ambassador Lyrith finally returned to her fleet, she carried with her a message that she knew would ignite fury among the elder races. Humanity would not yield. Her report to the Council was delivered within hours. The response was swift and predictable. The full Council fleet would be mobilized. Over 5,000 warships, the largest military force assembled in a century. They would converge on the human sector and deliver an ultimatum. Submit or be destroyed. As the Council prepared for war, Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the preparations on the station below. His first officer, Commander Lisa Park, stood beside him. Captain, our intelligence suggests the Council is mobilizing everything they have. If they come at us with their full fleet, even with our technology, the odds are not in our favor. Rodriguez nodded slowly. I know, but we are not alone either. The Prometheus Initiative did not build 6 ships. We built 60. And they are on their way. The Council thinks they know what humanity is capable of. They are about to discover they have no idea what we have been preparing for. Across the galaxy, in hidden shipyards and secret bases, humanity's true fleet began to move. Ships that had been built in silence, tested in the dark spaces between stars, crewed by men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. The Council had ruled for 3,000 years unchallenged, but their reign was about to face its greatest test. Humanity had knocked on the door of galactic civilization once before and been turned away. This time they were not asking for permission. They were announcing their arrival. The day the stars trembled, the Council fleet arrived like a wall of fire and steel, 5,000 warships strong, their combined presence enough to blot out the stars themselves. They formed up in battle formation, a demonstration of power so overwhelming that few civilizations in galactic history had ever witnessed such a sight. At the center flew the Eternal Dominion, the Council's flagship, a vessel 2 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could level continents. On its bridge stood all 7 leaders of the elder races, united in their purpose. Humanity would submit today, or humanity would cease to exist. Executor Thane opened a channel to the human station, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Humans of Earth, you have defied the laws of the Galactic Council. You have refused our reasonable demands for inspection and compliance. You stand now before the full might of galactic civilization. I will offer you this one final chance. Power down your vessels, surrender your technology, and submit to Council jurisdiction. Do this and your species will be spared. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why the Council has ruled for 3 millennia. The response came not from Director Okonkwo, but from a new voice, an older voice, weathered but strong. Executor Thane. This is Admiral Marcus Webb, Commander of the United Earth Space Force. Your terms are rejected. The simple statement sent ripples of shock through the Council leadership. Fleet Admiral Zaroth clicked his mandibles in anger. Then you have chosen extinction. All ships prepare to fire. We will erase this station and every human vessel from existence. But before the order could be executed, something impossible happened. Space itself began to tear open around the human position. Not in one place or two, but in dozens of locations simultaneously. And through each tier came ships. Black warships with hulls that seemed to drink in light, each one radiating power that made the Council's sensors scream warnings. 10 ships became 20. 20 became 40. 40 became 60. Within minutes, a human fleet had materialized that matched the Council's numbers in the sector, and each vessel generated energy readings that surpassed anything the Council had ever encountered. The Eternal Dominion's bridge fell silent as the tactical displays updated. High Magistrate Krell's mechanical voice was barely above a whisper. This is not possible. Where did they hide this many vessels? How did they build them without our knowledge? Admiral Webb's voice came through again, and this time there was something new in it. Not aggression, not triumph, but sorrow. You asked how we did this. I will tell you. 50 years ago, humanity was rejected, told we had no place among the stars. And in that moment, we made a choice. We would either accept your judgment and remain small, or we would become something you could not ignore. The human fleet began to move, not attacking, but repositioning, forming a defensive sphere around their station while maintaining weapons lock on the Council fleet. Admiral Webb continued speaking, his words now broadcast across all Council frequencies. We spent 50 years not preparing for conquest, but preparing for survival. Every human world contributed. Every scientist worked toward this goal. We pushed our technology to its limits and then passed them. We discovered things about the universe that perhaps we should not have. And we used that knowledge to build these ships, not to rule, but to ensure that never again would humanity be dismissed without a voice. Executor Thane found his own voice, though it trembled slightly. You cannot win this confrontation, Admiral. Even with these vessels, you are outnumbered 5-1. We have fought wars across the galaxy. We have crushed rebellions and ended civilizations. What makes you think you can stand against us? The answer came not in words, but in action. One of the human warships, the UESS Defiance, suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds. It moved through the Council formation like a ghost. Not firing, not attacking, but simply demonstrating capabilities that should not exist. It traversed the entire fleet's position in seconds, performing maneuvers that should have torn the ship apart from G-forces alone, before returning to its position in the human line. Admiral Webb spoke again. We do not think we can stand against you, Executor. We know we can, but more importantly, we do not want to. Look at what we have both brought to this place. Thousands of ships, millions of lives at risk, all because the Council could not accept that a new species might have something to offer. All because pride and tradition matter more than progress. He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a weight that made even the Council leaders listen. I am old now. I have spent most of my life working toward this moment, and I have come to realize something. The galaxy does not need another war. It does not need the Council to maintain its iron grip on every species. What it needs is the chance to grow, to change, to evolve beyond the old ways. Chancellor Miriam of the Kryn spoke for the first time, her voice thoughtful. What are you proposing, Admiral? Admiral Webb's response was simple but revolutionary. A new council. Not 7 races dictating to the galaxy, but a true federation where every species has a voice, where new civilizations are welcomed rather than rejected, where technology is shared rather than hoarded, where the strength of the galaxy comes not from domination but from cooperation. Fleet Admiral Zaroth's voice was harsh with disdain. You speak of fantasies. The galaxy is dangerous. Order must be maintained. Your idealism would lead to chaos. Admiral Webb sighed. Perhaps. Or perhaps the galaxy has been held back by your order. Perhaps there are civilizations out there that would have joined you if given the chance, but instead remained isolated because they feared your response. Perhaps humanity is not the only species you have turned away. The standoff continued for hours. Neither side fired. Neither side withdrew. The tension was so thick that one wrong word, one nervous weapons officer, could have triggered a battle that would have scarred the galaxy. But slowly, through discussion and debate broadcast across all channels, something began to change. Some of the Council leaders began to see the wisdom in Admiral Webb's words. Not all of them, but enough. High Magistrate Krell, whose machine mind could calculate probabilities with perfect accuracy, ran the numbers and saw that a war with humanity would cost the Council dearly, even if they won. Chancellor Miriam, whose people valued honor and strength, recognized that humanity had earned the right to be heard through their actions. Even Executor Thane, who had been the first to dismiss humanity, began to question whether the old ways were truly the best ways. It was Ambassador Lyrith, watching from the Eternal Dominion, who finally spoke the words that would change everything. Admiral Webb, if the Council were to agree to these terms to restructure as you suggest, what guarantee do we have that humanity would not simply use their superior technology to dominate in turn? Why should we trust you? Admiral Webb's response was immediate. Because, Ambassador, we will prove it. Right now, today, I am transmitting to you the complete specifications for our jump drive technology, the system that allows our ships to tear through space and appear anywhere we choose. It is the foundation of our tactical advantage, and I am giving it to you freely." The council leaders stared at their screens in disbelief as the data came through. Complete schematics, theory, practical applications, everything needed to replicate the technology. Fleet Admiral Zaroth was the first to speak. "This is a trick. There must be something hidden, some trap." But the council's scientists worked through the data and confirmed it was genuine. Humanity had just handed over the secret that made them powerful. Admiral Webb spoke once more, and his voice was tired but proud. "We are giving you this because we want you to understand something fundamental about humanity. We do not seek to rule. We seek to belong. We want to stand beside you as equals, not above you as conquerors, and we are willing to prove that through action, not just words." The debate among the council leaders raged for another hour, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The gesture had been too significant to ignore. Humanity had done something no species in council history had ever done. They had voluntarily given up their greatest advantage in pursuit of peace. Finally, Executor Thane spoke, his voice carrying across all channels. "Admiral Webb, the Galactic Council accepts your proposal. We will restructure. We will create a true federation where all voices are heard. But know this, if humanity betrays this trust, if you use what we give you to harm others, the consequences will be severe." Admiral Webb's relief was audible. "Understood, Executor. And know this in return. Humanity has waited 50 years for this moment. We will not waste it. We will prove that we deserve this chance." The fleets began to stand down. Weapons were powered off. Ships began to withdraw to safe distances. And on the human station, Director Okonkwo watched with tears in her eyes as history was made. A new era had begun, not through conquest or submission, but through the courage to stand firm and the wisdom to extend a hand in peace. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy watched in amazement as the council transformed. New species were invited to join. Old laws were re-examined. Technology began to be shared instead of hoarded. And at the center of it all was humanity. The species that had been rejected and had returned not with vengeance but with hope. The warships of the Prometheus Initiative did not disappear. They remained as a reminder and a promise. A reminder that those who sought to dominate would face resistance, and a promise that those who sought peace would find willing partners. Years later, Admiral Webb stood on the observation deck of the Horizon, now retired but still honored. A young officer approached him fresh from the academy, eyes bright with curiosity. "Admiral, may I ask a question?" "When we faced the council fleet that day, were you afraid we would have to fight?" The old admiral smiled, his eyes distant with memory. "Every moment. But I was more afraid of what would happen if we did nothing. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up and demand to be seen, not with violence, but with the absolute certainty that you deserve a place at the table. That is what humanity did that day. We announced to the galaxy that we were here, we were real, and we would not be ignored." The young officer nodded, then asked one more question. "Do you think the council would have really fired on us if we had not given them the jump drive technology?" Admiral Webb turned to look out at the stars, at the hundreds of ships now moving freely through what had once been forbidden space. "I honestly do not know, but I'm glad we never had to find out. War should always be the last option, never the first. And sometimes the greatest victory is the battle you do not have to fight." The galaxy had claimed to rule, had maintained its grip through fear and force for 3 millennia. But on the day humanity's hidden fleet appeared, everything changed. Not because humanity wanted to conquer, but because they had the courage to demand equality and the wisdom to pursue it through peace. And in the end, that made all the difference.